Welcome to this podcast. I'm really happy to join you again. So the first podcast, or I can also do video on this series on diet that I will do, and understanding what you need and how to adapt your diet. Unlike many framed food accompaniments, vegan, paleo, ketogenic, raw food, etc., this is not about locking yourself into a strict diet model. What I want to convey to you is radically different. I want to give you back the freedom to act in conscience by essentially transmitting you principles. I will give you, of course, recipes at the end of those video or podcast series. But first, you will learn the fundamentals to understand how the human digestive system works and what it needs are. When a charismatic person is passionate about a particular diet, it's hard to resist the urge to try, especially when they've seen dramatic results on their own. But unfortunately, when you apply a method to the letter, you cannot be sure that it will work for you. Far from it. We are all different, and each organism has radically different needs, such Ayurveda tells. The question of food should not be as complicated to tackle as it is now. Diet has also had catastrophic consequences. Every time we eat, stereotypical representations come to mind. Such and such a food is good or bad. It will have such and such a consequence on my body. We are paralyzed and stressed at the idea of to do wrong, which is counterproductive. In this podcast, I will therefore apply myself to give you peace, tranquility, serenity by focusing on a few very simple principles and by not deciding for you. Of course, unlike this hyper intellectualization of food that is present today, the fact of not being interested in it can also prove to be deleterious. I will first start by defining catabolism. A living body has several characteristics, including that of adapting to its environment. In the body, there is an adaptive function at the digestive, thermal, nervous, hormonal level, etc. It encompasses a large part of the working mechanism of the human body, but we have the ability to adapt to our environment. As long as he can adapt to his environment and has the resources to do so, all is well. Symptomatic manifestations that we commonly call disease, disorders in the functioning of the body, which are in fact only signals, occur when the body can no longer adapt. For example, if you decide to stop consuming animal products, you will inevitably be told about vitamin B12 deficiency. Despite everything, it is considered that there is a stock of this vitamin in the liver for a period of 2 to 4 years. As soon as the body no longer receives vitamin B12 from the outside, it will adapt and initially show no symptoms as long as this resource is still available. The day when the stock is exhausted, the first symptoms will appear. Diseases are really just symptoms, warning signs that our adaptive capacity in a particular area or more generally is overwhelmed. Our body no longer finds in its environment or in its resources what it needs to adapt to current conditions. To adapt, the body always follows the same process. It takes in its reserves or in its environment and it produces waste by its operation. Every living organism consumes resources, acts, and produces waste, which will be evacuated. Now, what is disease? As explained previously, the disease corresponds to the exceeding of our adaptive capacities. The body can no longer eliminate its waste, or the body cannot find in its environment the very nature of what is necessary for it to nourish this adaptive capacity. Among these elements, which strongly participate in the adaptation of the body, there are the nutrients. These are the nourishing parts that are found in the products that we consume. We can distinguish two categories of nutrients: macronutrients, lipids, carbohydrates, protein, and micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, trace elements. It is on these elements that the body is based to perform the function of adaptation. If he does not find in his environment or in his own resources the element he needs, the signals become symptoms and the symptoms become illness. It means that our adaptive capacity is overwhelmed. To achieve the adaptive function, it will manifest symptoms related to this deficiency, for example, symptoms of demineralization due to a lack of available minerals. The whole issues of food is, first of all, to meet this need inherent in the organism for both micro and micronutritional quality. It is thanks to this fundamental understanding that we will be able together to understand and then draw a framework in which you will evolve subsequently. This is what will guarantee your autonomy. Our adaptive capacity when it comes to food is based on our nutritional reserves. So, how do you prevent and respond to the onset of the disease? Everyone wants to avoid the onset of the disease, and for that, our adaptive capacity must not be overwhelmed. That is to say, our body must have sufficient resources to be able to compensate for the adaptive demands of its environment on a daily basis. Our food is one of the keys. It is far from being the only one. This is a fundamental key, especially since over the past 50 to 60 years, our food has experienced an unprecedented transformation in the quality, quantity, and nature of the food that we find on our plates. I will suggest that you adopt a daily diet that will ensure that the alarm signals, so the symptoms, do not go off. By consuming what the body really needs, you will not need any specific treatment or diet to compensate for possible dietary errors. This is the whole point of what I am proposing to you. For that, it will be necessary to promote the cleansing of the body. A body consumes resources and products of waste. Hence, the capital importance of providing it with adequate resources in terms of quantity and quality on a daily basis. The second challenge is to treat waste. The body is also perfectly equipped to process waste. We have a waste treatment system that normally works well. It goes through the lymphatic system, waste collection system, and the four emunctories: the kidneys, the intestines, the lungs, and the skin. From the moment when the quantity of waste exceeds that which the body can process, there is an accumulation of waste in our body. Food is a major contributor to this because modern food is a major source of waste. There are elements in the diet that our body cannot handle in terms of nutritional resources. They automatically become waste that the body must eliminate. So, an Ayurvedic approach to food will focus on two essential principles: provide food in sufficient quantity and quality to allow the adaptive system to function properly, and have a diet that will promote treatment and waste disposal. There will be two essential poles. During the last few years, I have analyzed many dietary approaches to find the right diet. As a result of my research, I was able to identify what was in common in all these diets. There are two, there are two principles that I will present to you in the next video or podcast. By keeping only two fundamental principles, we aim for the greatest efficiency for the minimum of effort. And above all, we do not enter into a food religion which cuts off from society. On the contrary, food should give us more vitality, more joy, and more enthusiasm. That's what I'm aiming for: nutrition and waste disposal. Then it is necessary to restore the reserves. Reserves of what? What does it mean to restore the reserves? These are micronutritional reserves, vitamins, mineral, trace elements. Since the end of the Second World War, our food and more generally our entire environment has undergone profound upheavals. Before the war, 100% of the food produced in the world was organic. We had a fresh, local, and very little processed food. Pesticides and synthetic fertilizers did not exist. The peasants used animal dropping and cultivated on living soils. However, for a plant to assimilate the nutrients from the soil, there must be a set of microorganisms, fungi, yeasts, bacteria, at the periphery of its roots, which allow the assimilation of soil minerals in the plant. Plants, which after being consumed, will then provide the body with these vitamins and minerals. At the end of the Second World War, we witnessed the advent of a productivist agriculture based on the use of herbicides and fungicides, which destroy the life of the soil, which greatly depleted the micronutritional content of our food. There was also a phase difference between the micronutritional content and the micronutrient content. Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats remained intact at the proportion of vitamins, mineral, and trace element collapsed over the time. This certainly explains the increase in our appetite. The body may receive enough micronutrients, it remains in micronutritional deficiency and compensates by always eating more to have the minimum micronutrition it needs to function on a daily basis. The tool that I offer will free you from the constraint of conventional diets by giving you back your autonomy and restoring your health. It is 7 years of progress that I am passing on to you here. I will discuss fruits in our diet, and next week I will talk to you about vegetables, then oilseeds, cereal, and I will end the video series or the podcast with animal products. So let's talk about the fruits. The intake of fruits is essential, but why the fruits? First and foremost, for reason of availability and digestibility, when we talk about nutrition directly accessible by the body, fruits are perfectly indicated. In fruits, sugar are in simple form, so they do not require a digestive process to be assimilated, and therefore no enzymatic capital is depleted. The fatty acids present in avocado or olives, for example, are also short chain and therefore particularly digestible and assimilable without inducing for the body to create a digestive process. Our instinct spontaneously pushes us to consume fruit. We need sugar and fats in a simple and attractive form. Fruits represent the reproductive organ of a plant. Its advantage is that you eat its fruits to disseminate the seed further and thus grow a new plant. Nature therefore encourages to eat fruit. Thanks to the sugars present, they represent a directly assimilable source of energy. It is the fuel of the cell. Fruits are therefore a base because they provide us with nutrients that can be used directly. The sweet fruits are simple sugar versus complex sugar. Sugar are intended to be broken down into simple sugars in our body so that they can be used. So why not focus on simple sugar from fruit that require less digestive effort? There are several reasons for this. Already cereals can be stored longer than fruit, but in our time the problem is different because we find fruit all year round on the shelves of our stores. This can be an advantage for tired people who do not have sufficient enzyme capital to digest a lot of complex sugars. Fruit is a perfect snack. They are easy to take away and do not require preparation before being consumed. They are one of the pillars of the diet. So, what are the virtues of fruits beyond sugars, antioxidants, tannins, astringents? Beyond the presence of micronutrients, sugars, of course, fatty acids, but also proteins, fruits are rich in micronutrients, vitamins, trace elements, minerals, and active ingredients. Astringency, which slightly dries the mouth when consumed, activate the circulation of all fluids in the body and in particular the lymph. Tannins, bitterness, will have a positive action on the liver and on the circulation of fluids. Antioxidants, which give fruit color, neutralize free radicals produced by cell. The body produces it, but the fruit gives us a lot of it and allow us to fight against the premature aging of cells by neutralizing the waste they produce. Rather than going for these elements in often highly processed and very expensive dietary supplements, it is in your best interest to consume fruits. Hippocrates said, "Let your food be your medicine." With fruits, you have a fabulous reserve of nutrition and active ingredients that is almost incomparable in terms of bioavailability and nutritional richness when it comes to organic fruits that have grown on healthy soil. But isn't that too much sugar? We are sometimes wary of fruits because we are afraid of consuming too much sugar. But when we talk about fruit, what are we talking about? Because there are different categories of fruits. Sweet fruits like apples, melon, blueberries, strawberries, cherries, watermelons, bananas, etc. You have oil fruits like nuts, almonds, cashews, macadamia nuts, Brazil nuts, etc. And fatty fruits like avocado, olives, or fruiting vegetables like tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchini, peppers. There is therefore not only sugar among the fruits. All these fruits share this ability to feed us directly with minimal digestive work. If you take your food from the whole range of fruits, you will have a quality micronutritional and micronutritional contribution. Fruits, vitamins, minerals, trace element, astringency, tannin, antioxidant, which does not risk unbalancing and providing too much sugar. This is also one of the risks when you change your diet, adding too much sweet fruit and forgetting the other categories of fruit. Avocados and olives will provide you with excellent fatty acids. Oil seeds should be soaked beforehand. They are also rich in very high quality fats and protein, directly assimilable short chain amino acid. Sweet fruit, as we have seen, are digested quickly. The sugars pass through the blood, the body produces insulin, which will command the body to enter the storage phase. Insulin will promote the passage of sugar through cells and programs the storage of excess sugar, first in the form of glycogen, then fat. It will therefore be important to regulate two factors: the amount of sugar consumed and the speed at which they will pass through the body. There are tips I will show you to avoid spikes in blood sugar. What about dried fruit? Compulsory soaking. Among the dried fruits, there are various products such as dry figs, dates, or raisin, for example. Because they have lost a lot of their water, they are very concentrated in sugar. For all people who are overweight, diabetic, or have a metabolism disorder, they should be consumed sparingly and imperatively soaked overnight in water. Although a soaked dry fruit no longer has the same properties as a fresh fruit, it at least has the advantage of seeing its sugar content diluted. You will be able to consume the fruit as well as the soaking water. In the end, there will always be the same amount of sugars, but it will have been diluted, resulting in a lower glycemic peak. You can, by mixing dried fruit with their soaking water, obtain an absolutely delicious raw jam. It can be kept for a few days in the fridge. White sugar and refined sugar, what the difference? Unlike white sugar, fruit sugar is accompanied by fiber and minerals. These two elements have a huge impact on the speed of assimilation of sugars in the body, and above all, it changes the nature of the nutrition that is provided. With white sugar, you will not have any nutritional contribution other than sugar. There are empty calories. It induces a significant blood sugar spike, leading to fat storage and exhaustion of your body. Moreover, we are currently facing an obesity epidemic linked to an explosion in our consumption of refined sugars in our diet. I recommend no refined sugar and use several sources of natural sugar such as soaked dried fruit or honey. The difference between white sugar and fruit sugar therefore lies in the speed of assimilation. This is why we invented indexes such as the glycemic load index, which tells us for a given quantity of food the speed at which the sugar level will increase in the blood. And among the sweet products, fruits are among those with the lowest glycemic load thanks to the fibers present. These are so-called soluble fibers which will form a kind of gel in the intestines on contact with water, thus promoting a gradual passage of sugars through the intestine barrier. You will have energy for longer without a significant spike in insulin or alternating between and hyperglycemia. It is also very likely that many psychological disorders that we find in our time are linked to these states of hypo and hyperglycemia. In hypoglycemia, the body produces adrenaline, which can lead to major emotional crises. Fruits provide much more constant energy, which will also stabilize your mood and the whole organism as a whole. So, why and when to eat fruit? We have just explained it. When to eat fruit? When you are angry. But I'm still going to encourage you not to eat fruit all day because even if they are rich in soluble fibers and mineral limiting blood sugar peaks, they are still sweet products. Eating fruit throughout the day can cause you to fall into a vicious cycle of making you want to eat fruit soon after you have already eaten it, causing you to yo yo through your blood sugar spikes. I will therefore encourage you to concentrate your consumption of fruit outside of meal, at least starting your meal with fruit. But there again, when we talk about fruits, it's not necessarily sweet fruits. It can be oleaginous fruits, fatty fruits, according to the needs and the appetite of each one. If you take your fruits, consume them along with other products that will have the advantage of avoiding those glycemic yo-yo. What works very well with the fruit meal are either the greens or fat from the fruit, for example, coconut, fat, etc. And the advantage of consuming fruit meal is that it makes it easier for the body to digest them, thus freeing up the energy available for action during your day. One of the criteria you will be watching to verify that your fruit meal is right for you is how tired you are at the end of the meal. If you are tired, it is a bad sign. There was probably too much fruit. If you are cold, it means that you have consumed too much juicy fruit. It will be necessary to densify. How to favor quality fruit? Between an apple sprayed with pesticide that has grown almost above ground and the local and organic apple, there is a colossal difference. Reducing the quantities will allow you to move towards more quality. When you go to buy your fruits, you will first need to have done some sourcing work. That is to say, look for good producers in your environment. A fruit that has just been picked from the tree, that has not gone through refrigerators for weeks or months, will be infinitely richer in micronutrition and also in taste. This will require you to take the time to find quality products, and they are found in all the regions. In your organic store, look at the address of producer on the crates and contact them directly. It takes time and organization, but there are foods that keep a long time, such as apples, watermelons, or dried fruit. On the other hand, strawberries or cherry will have a very short storage time requiring you to return there regularly. It is from the quality of the products that the ease of transitioning to a diet that includes more fruit will come. Among the sweet fruits, there are several categories which will meet different purposes. We generally talk about three main categories: acid fruits like orange, grapefruit, lemon, pineapple, kiwi, etc. The weak acids present in this fruit have the property of cleaning the body. These are solvents that dissolve deposits inside your digestive system in particular and even throughout your body. This is why we can prescribe grapefruit or lemon juice cures for people with calcifications. On the other hand, for people who are particularly acidified, even these weak acids will represent too much acidity for the body. It is therefore necessary to use this category of fruit with intelligence, parsimony, and feeling. If you have a rather good build and good vitality, acidic fruit will not be a problem. If you're the exhausted, chilly, sore type with pain all over your body, go easy on the sour fruits. The body will not be able to deal with the acidity even if it's weak acids. Namely, the elimination of weak acids take place mainly through the pulmonary route. If you are exhausted, you may have limited breathing capacity and you will have a hard time removing these acids. For the semi-acidic fruits like strawberries, raspberries, apple, cherries, berries, peaches, nectar, medlars, watermelons, and melons, they are very well tolerated by most people. They are even ideal products for people who have a problem with sugar metabolism. They contain few acids, are often quite watery, and do not have too high sugar concentration. Sweet fruits like bananas, persimmons, dried fruits, etc., they contain a lot of sugar and no acids. All people with inflamed intestines like colitis, colopathies, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, etc., will have no problem consuming sweet fruits. Note that bananas are part of the so-called climacteric fruits, that is to say, which ripen after harvest, and all climacteric foods can be purchased unripe. Those that do not have this characteristic will soften and then rot, but will not be able to ripen after being picked. The apple, if it's very sweet, will, after having been grated or mixed, oxidize to resemble a sweet fruit. Finding smooth, perfectly calibrated, and for lesson store is rather a bad sign. When a fruit is stressed, as for our organism, there are two possibilities. Either the stress which is applied to this fruit is greater than the ability of the plant to resist it. In this case, the plant dies and there is no fruit. Either it does not die and develops sweeter, tastier fruits with more nutrients. So when you find fruits that are marked, it indicates that the plant struggled to grow and produced better quality fruit. At the market, prefer small apples with stains, scab, peaches, a little curled up, or apricot, not very beautiful. It is a sign of quality. We have to re-educate our imagination and accept that the fruits we eat are not perfect. About the storage, forget about storing fruit in the refrigerator right away. Your fruit will not longer have taste. The taste, quality, and the texture of the fruit will be directly affected. To store your fruit, choose cool places and spread them out on wooden crates so that air can circulate as much as possible between the fruits. It will be necessary to regularly monitor them and consume those which are starting to be a little too ripe. This is the best way not to waste and to have fruits that really ripens without having been blocked by the cold. Here I give you a little tip to keep your fruit even better. There are commercially available mixture called effective microorganism, EMS. You put about 3%